Step 3 spinal. Step target up strip on the road, but you can see it all refinery. Say good. Stroke. Stroke 3, come on. Stroke 3, check right, brake right. Stroke 3, brake right. Sam right 2. Confirm your stroke 3, brake right, Sam line. Stroke 3, brake, code 4. Sam right 3, right 3. Sam no. Wait, somebody got a hit. Code 4's hit.
Confirm enemy squawk.
Understand your hit.
4, negative bad guy squawk, negative friendly squawk.
Flap 7, visual left 9. Stroke 4 status. Code 4 status.
3, 2, 1, flight off.
What's up everybody, it's Mover. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about probably one of the most intense and well-known videos on YouTube, at least in my opinion. An F-16 dodging surface-to-air missiles over Iraq in 1991. So today we're going to take a look at that video and break it down. But first, let's look at an article from Air Force magazine 4 years ago in 2016. And it gives some of the backstory. The title of this sub-article is "No Chaff, No Flares, No Problem." During the Package Q airstrike into Baghdad on January 19th, 1991, Emmett Tullia, I think that's how you say it, Tullia, outflew at least 6 Iraqi surface-to-air missiles and lived to tell about it. A famous head-up display video of his dancing with SAMs remains a teaching tool in the Air Force today. That's the video we're going to take a look at. Then Major Tullia flew one of the F-16s assigned to attack an oil refinery in Baghdad near a bend in the Euphrates River. Intelligence indicated that the Iraqis had grouped substantial defenses in the area. Still, Tullia was surprised at the intensity of the ground fire as he approached the target. Anti-aircraft shells were creating a virtual carpet of smoke and shrapnel in the sky, mostly at altitudes from 10 to 12,000 feet. I didn't expect such a big effort on their part, he says. The first SAMs appeared just prior to roll-in. There were 2 of them, SA-2s. I turned around, saw them coming up. They went beneath us and overshot, Tullia says. He was getting some additional missile warnings, but he dived in and delivered his bombs on the now burning refinery. As he pulled off and headed south, the electronic countermeasures warnings escalated. He was now the hunted, not the hunter. He looked back and saw 2 missile plumes. He wondered if they were directed at him, and it quickly became clear they were. Then I go, "Oh no, time to start maneuvering," Tullia says. He jettisoned his wing tanks to lighten up his F-16 and make it more nimble. He remembers thinking the effect of this move was pretty impressive. It really did make a difference. These 2 missiles also overshot and detonated harmlessly above his aircraft. He turned back onto the egress heading, and then 2 more SAMs came at him from his left and right rear quadrants. Tullia began dancing in earnest, waiting until the last second before a hard turn to cause the missile to overshoot and detonate far enough away to avoid shrapnel damage to his fighter. At this point, he was separated from the right of his flight and losing altitude due to his defensive maneuvers. It was challenging because I didn't have a lot of chance to gain airspeed, he said. He'd punched his wing tanks and did not have a lot of remaining fuel. Using the augmented thrust could have made it impossible for him to return to base. I guess they're talking afterburner here. I was gambling that maybe in mil power I could still get enough speed to maneuver. I was lucky because it did work out, he says. Finally, he was out of the SAM envelope and heading for south of the border at high altitude. A fellow 614th TFS pilot lagged back to keep him company. In the end, Tullia was surprised. He had enough fuel to make it back. He landed in Qatar, pulled right off, and shut it down. I don't know how much gas I had left. It couldn't have been much, he says. Walking around the F-16 after, Tullia and his crew chief discovered that his chaff and flares had not been dispensed. He had avoided those missiles without countermeasures, utilizing his flying prowess alone. I was kind of surprised, he says dryly. For this exploit, Major E.T. Tullia was later awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. Awesome. So let's take a look at the video itself. Okay, so here's the F-16 dodging 6 Iraqi SAMs on 19 January 1991. The way I'll run this is I'm going to stop as I see things. I'll leave a link in the description if you just want to watch it all the way through without me jibber-jabbering. But it's a 9-minute or a 10-minute video, so to avoid playing it through and then coming back, I'm going to stop and try to explain as we go. So let's take a look at the video. A warning, it is pretty intense.
Today's the 19th of January. His name is Tullia. Stroke number 3, mission.
Okay, so what he's doing there, before every combat mission, we title our tapes. Back then it was 8mm tapes, now it's DVRs, but you title your tapes in EOR. So what you're looking at here is actually the arming crew at the end of the runway, and they're arming up all his bombs and missiles and chaff and flare and all that stuff. So he's standing there, tell him, hey, keep your hands clear. And it's a good time to title your tapes. So you're saying what the mission is, what your target is, and what your plan is. So he's going to go through all that here, and I'll explain what it means.
Number 2365 is going to be attacking the oil refinery in the southern part of Baghdad. Backup target is the airfield, which is the IP.
So he basically said he's gave us mission number. He's stroke 3.
TOT is 1343. We're using Mark 84s. 45 high.
Okay, so his TOT was, he gave the time, so that was in about 2 hours, I think. It was 11 something there. And then he said that he's going to use Mark 84s. So those are 2,000-pound general purpose bombs. This is back in the early 90s, so we're not talking LGBs or anything like that. We're just talking GP bombs. And he said he was going to do 45 high, which is a 45-degree dive angle, is what he's planned to do, which we'll talk about here later in the video of what he actually does. And it's high. It's a high drag bomb, so that changes planned and minimum release and all that stuff. So you're for the weaponeering. Okay, right here he's looking at the camera coefficients. And he's also doing the camera check, the dive toss check, which you'll see in a second. And that's just, yeah, so there he is. So you do the dive toss check, and all that's doing is checking to make sure that the camera, the HUD camera, is aligned with what he's seeing. And that's for debrief purposes, for assessing where the symbology is. So the camera coefficients are actually either on the canopy or in the books. You write them down and you make sure that it matches. So that's all the ground stuff. That was just the legalese. It's a lot more complicated now with JDAMs and stuff like that. There's a lot more stuff you have to say, but that's the basics. Canopy coefficients, all the different stuff he has to say prior to going out on the missions, just titling the tapes.
Target the border, bomb some Army battalions. Right now, tentative game plan is work nail 01 is our airborne FAC. Coordinates are 28, 35, 45 north, 47, 5206 east, just inside the Kuwaiti border.
Okay, so he's given what their plan is. They've got a forward air controller that's gonna talk them in for their target. That's helping the package there, the Q package. General stuff on the HUD, just so you're aware. Left side is calibrated airspeed. So right now he's 330 knots. These are Block 30, I think, big mouth aircraft. So just really early software, because this is the early 90s. So they were brand new jets. I mean, 86 to 88. So they're probably a 5-6-year-old aircraft. He's at altitude here, so a little over right at 24,000 feet. He's in sim right now. That's his indicated Mach. That is his max G pulled. So if you look at how much G's he's pulled so far, that's what he is, unless he reset it. That's his current G. So when we look at the G's, that's where that is. Radar altimeter, so that's his altitude above the ground. This is his steer point. These are his radio frequencies, and this is the time. This is all his IFF stuff. So, and these are pitch ladders. That's 5 degrees up, 5 degrees down, and that's his heading. That's all change when he changes master modes, but just to give you a basic idea of what he's looking at.
Alpha Golf 3 southeast. And I'm going to work out tank plan, call you back here in just a second.
All right, so he's ingressing the target area now, 0.9 Mach. Doing a dip check to make sure it looks like what it's supposed to look like. They're up at 26.
33015. Plus one's got a spike.
Okay, one's got a spike. That means his radar warning receiver is receiving radar energy from something. He doesn't say what it is. He might say it here in a second, but it is something. It could be another enemy aircraft, or it could be something from the ground, ground track radar or something like that.
So right 1 o'clock, Charlie 4, deviating left.
All right, so the film switch, now he's in a...
Picture clean.
Okay, so they go picture clean, which AWACS is saying there's no air-to-air threats in the area right now. So at this point, he switched to CCRP. That's his current G. Altitude airspeed is all the same. That's the locator line to the target or to the current selected steer point there. And that is a bomb fall line for CCRP. So it's a constantly computed release point, which he'll switch to CCIP, which is the constantly computed impact point here in a second.
Fred's tally target is clear.
Tally target, so he sees the target, clear, no problems. It's 40 degrees off right here, you can see. He's on a 300 heading. He looks like he's offsetting to get his roll in.
Collapse target is not clear.
Target's not clear, he says.
Stroke looks like the target's clear. Collapse target is not clear.
So now they're going back and forth. One saying it's clear, one saying it's not. He's seeing the AAA.
Lap 3, 4, do you see the target? Stroke 1's got SA2 launch.
Stroke 1's got SA2 launch. So what the SA2 is, it's a Russian-developed surface-to-air missile. I think it's back in the 50s. It's a very old missile system, mainly used Vietnam and then proliferated to other countries. They've done upgrades and stuff, but at this time, it's just a real big missile. It's actually 35 feet long, so like a telephone pole coming at you. So a little easy to see as compared to like other missiles, like an air-to-air missile or something like that, and doesn't have a whole lot of in-game maneuverability. So you'll see he's doing a lot of what's called last-ditch maneuvers here that give him the ability to outmaneuver the missile in-game to defeat him. So he's defending, he's calling out what he sees. That's the missile launch indication.
Stroke 3, you're on your own.
Stroke 3, you're on your own.
Stroke 3, spin out.
So one guy just said he jettisoned. So he's defending for a missile, he's last ditch, he doesn't want to get hit, so he's jettisoned to give himself some more maneuverability. Yeah, so one of them jettisoned and he's egressing. He's like, "Yep, I got rid of my bombs, I'm going home." And tanks.
Slits 4 has those, no squads. Let's do confirm sour. Clap 4, understand, hidden south.
All right, so he's rolling in here. He switches to CCIP.
Let's egress.
He's already defeated 2 missiles.
Copy, blind.
Visit your right 5.
Copy that, coming right. Clap 4, visuals, your right 4. Clap 4, visual.
Okay, so remember he said he was going to do a 45 high. He's at 25 degrees, so he's a very shallow. So whereas, you know, he's about 45 degrees, what he was looking for, now he's a little bit more shallow. It works. It would obviously be something to debrief, but he's just been defending. No one's going to fault him for that. The biggest thing to watch is this dud queue here, because he doesn't obviously want to dud the bombs so they don't fuse and explode. But the threat with being shallow like that is you're outside of your parameters. So we have weaponeered parameters that we're supposed to meet, and we're supposed to be within our dive angle, within our release airspeed and our release altitude window. And he's kind of outside of that, but it will be an effective attack, so it doesn't really matter.
Picture slits 180 for 12.
All right, so wanted 45, got 25, released under G. Does kind of a safe escape, and remember he's looking at flak. And there's another, now they're popping off missiles at him.
Stroke 3, come on. Stroke 3, check right, break right. Stroke 3, break right.
So his wingman's calling out, stroke 3, you've got a missile launch at you. So they're just trying to generate angles and problems and stuff, and that's what you see. So stroke 4 got hit.
Understand your hit.
4, negative bad guy squad, negative friendly squad.
Clap 7, visual left 9. Stroke 4 status.
So they're calling the status on his wingman. His wingman's just been shot down.
Stroke 3 goes southeast now.
So he's just trying to get him out of bad guy land. And at this point, he's punched off his tanks. Right, there's, you can see the missile contrails. And this is just... God. Yep. Yep, and that's all he's doing, is he's trying to maneuver to generate problems for the missile guidance.
Strokes flow south.
So flow south, they're trying to, they ingressed north, they're trying to go back home south.
Stroke 8 line. South.
All right, now he's getting low, now he's into that anti-aircraft artillery zone, so they're telling him to climb back up to get out of that.
Sam, southeast of the target area.
And there's another SAM launch at him. So they're just popping off missiles at him. Oh, God. That one must have been close.
Stroke 3 defending.
You can see at the bottom he's pulled 6.5 Gs.
Stroke 3 is still there. Stroke 3 is still setting southeast.
Yeah. So he says you're still there. This is back before data link and link 16 and saddle and all that stuff. So all they had was visual, maybe air-to-air attack-in. I don't think they had the air-to-air attack-in up right now. Yeah, so the only way they could get back together was visual. So it's hey, you still there? Because the train, the strike package is already dropped their bombs and going home. One guy stays behind to be with him, but he's like, hey, you know, because he's trying to visually find him while not getting shot down himself. So he's like, hey, you still back there? Because this is real life. They just had one get shot down, and they're trying to rally forces and get out together.
What's your status? Flap 3 is heading south. Flap 4 status. Flap 4 is hit, no shoot. Stroke 3 defending 6.
So there's another. So defending 6, that's an SA-6. So that they must have switched. SA-6 is a much more formidable missile. That's not, you know, the SA-2, yeah, it's a big 35-foot telephone pole. The SA-6 is much more capable, has a lot more in-game energy. So defeating it is a lot more challenging than the SA-2. Oh, wow. And dude, he's just... There he goes. There's up and over. Every time he thinks he's got a break, there's another SAM that's after him. He just needs to get out of there. And that's 6.5 Gs on your body. So, I mean, this is a physical workout for him. It's incredible. And now he's risking getting down on the AAA, being down to 10,000 feet. He's out of breath. I would be too. That's incredible.
Copy. Copy.
Yeah. Every time he thinks he's safe, he's defending against another missile. This is incredible.
Stroke 7, or flap 7, positive, steer point 9.
So that's one of the other flights saying, hey, what's your posit in relation to steer point 9?
Stroke 8 is 2 west, Angels 2-4.
So they're just trying to get back together to see where everybody's at, rally the forces.
Okay.
Now he's down below 10,000 feet. but he's egressing. He's on the right heading. So he's maneuvering to try to defeat the target acquisition radar. He's gone to dogfight mode and air-to-air. And he's climbing. Amazing. Got himself real slow at 200 knots, so he doesn't have a whole lot of maneuvering potential at this speed. So he goes back to nav mode, which is the center position. And that's it. So he got himself out of bad guy land. Oh man, I recommend watch it without me talking. It's a very intense thing. So the big thing, they talk about he didn't have any chaff flares. I don't know. So I flew the Block 30. Obviously, I flew the Block 30 15 years after this, 17 years after this. So a lot of software has changed. But usually when you use chaff flare, I don't know how it was back in the early days of the Block 30, but he may not have ever hit the CMOS switch, the countermeasure switch, because I don't ever hear it say chaff flare, chaff flare. That might have been something they added later, or he may have been hitting it and nothing was coming out. But to me, that explains why he came back and nothing was out, because he just never hit it. But that's really interesting. You know, if he was hitting it and nothing was happening or whatever. But he defeated 6 SAMs, and I think a couple were SA2s, so the big telephone poles, and a couple were SA6s, which are really lethal surface-to-air missiles, and that's impressive. I mean, that just goes to show you, you know, his head was outside the whole time, trying to find the missile, because in order to defeat it in-game, if you're not using countermeasures, you're not using jamming or anything like that, you have to physically defeat the missile with the jet. And he did that. I mean, he physically defeated the missiles by making them miss in-game. We talked about it with Behind Enemy Lines and a couple of that other Pakistani movie. Missiles don't chase. So once they're defeated, that's it. They fly off into nowhere. He is not being chased by one missile. He's being shot at by 6. And I think something like this would have made for much more realistic and much more interesting TV than what they did, where they did the Wile E. Coyote missile that, you know, plays chicken with him and then flies around and then chases him around the mountain and all that stuff. So anyway, but this is a really intense video. Check it out. It's a fascinating story. The whole operation is fascinating. So in the end, 2 F-16s were lost. This F-16 that we see made it back safely, but there were a lot of lessons learned that came out of the planning and execution phase of the strike mission and how we lost 2 F-16s. But really interesting HUD tape, very intense, and man, just scary stuff. So anyway, hope you guys are having a great week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Excuse me. Oh, no. Oh! About a lot of them. God. Why is that an Air Force guy? Usually fly with the doors off. Fox 2. Don't be a douche. That's rule number 1. Make them tell you no.